Diablo 4 Vessel of Hatred is here, and along with it comes a ton of new mechanical changes, a continuation of the story from the base game, a new area to explore, and for the first time in more than a decade, a brand new class for a mainline Diablo game. If you're looking for the easiest way to get to the harder difficulties with that new class, here's a quick guide on the skills we'd recommend getting first when you're just getting started with the Spiritborn. When it comes to early game leveling, our recommendation is to go with an Eagle Centipede hybrid for at least the first 30 or so levels. Start off with Thunderspike as your basic skill with 1 point, snag the enhanced, and then grab Sharp as its modifier since you're not going for a specific build right now and just want a little bit of an extra kick with your basic attacks. The big thing that makes Thunderspike so great as an early game skill is that every 3 hits, you reduce your evade cooldown, which pretty much means that you'll get a free evade every 3 hits. This makes you very mobile and allows you to avoid certain slow and hard-hitting attacks that you might otherwise just have to tank. Quill Volley is your next step, and it's the main reason why Eagle is so strong early game. It's got a shotgun-like spread that can shred elites and bosses early on. Max this out as quick as you can, and then go for Enhanced and the Advantageous modifier to really make it hurt. If you're able to find the rebounding aspect for this as well, you'll be pretty much unstoppable early game. For your focus skill, I like to take Soar here as another mobility tool. It's handy as an emergency escape, a time saver since you're able to just leap across gaps or up cliffs that you might otherwise have to navigate around, and it can also be a good tool to engage as well. Put 1 point, then get Enhanced so you can power up your next Quill Volley when you land. It's up to you at this point whether you want to get one of the extra modifiers, as they're kind of tailored towards more specific builds. If you're able to find the aspect of Turbulence, definitely look to equip it, as it will cast Vortex on the spot where you land, pulling nearby enemies in, and putting them in prime position for a Quill Volley that hits each of them. For the next skill, we recommend Scourge as an early game build. It pairs super well with Quill Volley as a kind of 1-2 punch to clear out a whole group of enemies at once. Put 1 point in, and then grab the Enhanced modifier, along with the Reinforced modifier, so that you can use it as a way to restore vigor very quickly. At this point, go back to the core skills and put a point into the Vigorous passive. We'll need an extra point invested before we can unlock the Potency skills, and Vigorous will get us some very welcome vigor generation. Razor Wings is a solid projectile that can get some extra range damage in without having to cost any vigor. But to really make it stand out, you'll need some aspects and point investment. If you'd like to be less of a glass cannon, definitely consider grabbing either Counterattack or Armored Hide. Armored Hide will passively get you stacks of Resolve, which increases your damage resistance, and when you activate it, it'll give you 100% block chance for a few seconds, while Counterattack will passively give you dodge chance and deal damage every time you dodge, and when you activate it, it will dodge all attacks for a short duration. Whatever your choice here, spend the next 7 points on it, maxing out the base skill, getting the enhanced version, and then either the Reinforced modifier for Armored Hide, the Reinforced modifier for Counterattack, or the Invasive modifier for Razor Wings. After that is your ultimate, which for this early game build, will once again stick with Eagle and go with the Seeker. It's got a very lengthy cooldown, but you get 3 charges with it, which gives it a lot of bang for your buck. Go ahead and grab the 2 modifiers as well with your next 2 points. And finally, for your key passive, go with Vital Strikes, and then go back through your skill tree and swap your Sharp Thunderspike modifier for Accelerated, add a point to the Replenishing modifier for Soar when you can, and add a point to Focal Point in the Focus skill tree so that you can max out Apex. With all of these, you should have a pretty solid kit designed around putting Vulnerable on enemies, dealing extra damage to them, and then reapplying it right back between your Quill Volleys, Razor Wings, Soars, and Spirit Hull buff, which we'll get to in just a second. At this point, you should be pretty much set on your main abilities and your key passive. For future level ups, some passives that you'll want to go back to pick up include Vigorous, we already put 1 point here but feel free to max it out, Velocity, since this is kind of a hit and run playstyle, Brilliance to get some more Eagle damage, Acceleration to increase your movement speed and also increase the bonus granted from Brilliance. Then you can max out Resolution and continue down this tree of ultimate enhancing passives by also getting Sustenance, Spiritual Attunement, and Supremacy. One thing that we haven't talked about yet is the Spirit Hall, which becomes available once you reach level 15 and you complete the Spiritborn specialization quest by talking to Tarka the Emissary in Gaeakul. Upon completion, you'll be able to select one of 4 guardian spirits that will each grant you a powerful buff that bolsters that spirit's preferred style of play. In this little guide that we've laid out, you're primarily an Eagle specialist, so we'd recommend just taking Eagle here, which will grant you the Storm Feathers movement buff every time you cast a skill, cause damaging Storm Feathers to drop every time you evade based on how many seconds you have left of the buff, up to a max of 8 feathers per evade, and make targets vulnerable. At level 30, you'll be able to take a secondary passive buff from the Spirit Hall. You're able to swap these without penalties, so my recommendation would be to experiment with Eagle and Centipede to figure out what works best for you, the critical strike chance from Eagle, or the lifesteal when you cast Scourge from Centipede. This is just a suggested early game leveling guide to have a relatively easy time in normal or hard difficulty before you respec after gearing up with some build defining legendaries and uniques. For some later game build ideas, check out our videos for a late game Jaguar build and a Poison Thorn build. And for everything else, keep it here on IGN.